These videos are not random. Although each stands alone, they are, with the exception of last week's rant about political censorship on social media, a series bound together by the theme of hopes, dreams, and the need to cope and push through to achieve them, even in the face of life events that play out like a Greek tragedy, as reinterpreted by Rod Serling. I make this series for one reason, catharsis. But for those of you watching, I welcome you to come along for the ride. And I thank you for your support. Hi guys, Jason Bodine coming at you from on location here in Springville, Alabama. Welcome back to the channel. While the first two videos in this series, Gadsden, Alabama, a city in crisis, and male reproductive rights, the global systemic ism nobody wants to acknowledge, cover topics that affect a lot of people, it should be readily obvious to the casual viewer that they have a personal meaning to me as well. After all, I am a man from Gadsden, Alabama, who has a business he's trying to get open, and the only hindrance to opening it is finding affordable rent for a building, and who, despite being 47 years old and single, with no plans of ever changing that, still wants to start a family. But what about the third video? Why this channel is what it is? Where I poke a little fun at myself with cutaway scenes and talk about my tastes in music, movies, and television. Well, the short answer to that question is that it has to do with moods and coping mechanisms regarding a string of bad luck and tragedies unbelievable outside of fiction, and goals that, unlike those covered in the first two videos, can never be realized. For the long answer, and the key to the theme of this series of videos, we'll need to go back in time a little bit. Now, out of respect for the privacy of all involved, I won't use real names or locations for the remainder of this segment of the video, but the crazy downward spiral that was to come began with the man that I'm talking about right here, and a revelation about him that I learned on Thanksgiving Day of 2019 that threw me down a rabbit hole that I will probably never climb out of. On that day, I received a text message from his girlfriend, a woman who, for the sake of this video, we'll call Ursula because, trust me, the shoe fits in more ways than one, acting like a jealous harpy who thought I was going to steal her man away. Yeah. That text message led to a phone call later that night. After hearing that I had no interest in her man, other than talking and maybe establishing some kind of cordial relationship so we could at least stand to be in the same room together again, Ursula, just like her namesake, took on an air of compassion and helpfulness, and again, just like her pseudonym, it was an act. She arranged for us to meet for lunch, with the stipulation, of course, that she got to be there too. And then she informed him right there on the phone that he was going whether he was comfortable with it or not. As for that revelation, I was told, again, with him right there next to her and not contradicting a single word she said, that he had an emotional breakdown several days prior and told her in a hail of tears that I'd been his boyfriend in an 8-year relationship. Now, this was news to me. Nobody informed me of this. A week and 2 phone calls later, Ursula was still acting like everything was fine and set to go for lunch. Then, without any warning whatsoever, suddenly I was blocked on Facebook and all communication ceased. The lunch was canceled. Why? According to Ursula, when my brother finally got in touch with her, her boyfriend was so uncomfortable with it that he didn't even want her talking to me. Yeah, right. Okay, more happened in this situation, and I'll come back to it later in this video, in the next segment. But in the meantime, more bad things happened, and I spent the next year of my life feeling like this was my theme song. Within 2 weeks of getting cut off by Ursula, I hit my knee on the corner of a glass tank in such a way that I didn't hit it hard, but still had to walk with a cane for a couple of days. And at the end of that 2-week period, my grandmother passed away. The remainder of that year, I spent still in the twilight zone as I continued to get updates from others in contact with Ursula's boyfriend that sounded as though he was getting ready to talk to me again. Yet, somehow, that never happened. Now, all hope for a resolution with Ursula's boyfriend came to a crashing halt on December 10th, 2020. 1 year to the day after the canceled lunch was originally scheduled to take place. He passed away under tragic circumstances that I won't go into here. And as for Ursula, I won't go into all the things I've learned about her since, but at the memorial service, she cried like a desert cactus. That is to say, she didn't. Needless to say, the soundtrack in my head very quickly switched back and forth between after I saw the way she acted. The string of tragedy and bad luck didn't stop there. Barely a month after the events I described in the last segment, another relative passed away, making that the third death in a year that I had to deal with. That's where my pets and other interests start coming in. This was too much bad coming at me way too fast, and I needed coping mechanisms quick. Little did I know that life was about to use a few of those coping mechanisms to screw with me once again. But before I get into that, let me touch again on the story of Ursula's boyfriend. There is one more item of note because it kicked off the current string of bad luck that I'm still working my way through to this very day. There is a certain object that I gave him as a Christmas gift many years ago that I know he held on to despite our falling out. I asked his parents for it, and they have been looking for it for months ever since, but it hasn't turned up, which means that I have no mementos or photos or anything of what for me was a close friendship that lasted for 12 years. Now, returning again to my coping mechanisms, a few of them helped a lot, like watching reruns of the TV show Supernatural and writing a fanfic reboot script for the show, and watching videos on YouTube, especially music reaction videos and videos of actors Jensen Ackles and Misha Collins from Supernatural, because even though some have said that we had more of a Beavis and Butthead dynamic, the way those two interact with each other reminds me of the kind of friendship Ursula's boyfriend and I shared. The rest? Well, one went completely bad because I lost the password to my Bitcoin wallet and access to almost $70,000 of the digital currency. And the others I haven't given up hope on, even though they continue to be plagued with problems, particularly where my pets are concerned. From Zelda, who, after the glass in the back door shattered several months ago, decided she will no longer go into the backyard by herself, to a filter that costs over $200 in one of my aquariums that refuses to work properly, to a betta fish that had to be replaced after the original one that I ordered arrived DOA, to the deaths of fish in 2 other tanks. My puffer Maurice to an antibiotic-resistant infection that developed while I was treating him for other ailments, and a loach in another tank that I found dead just today. Which leads, finally, to this series of YouTube videos I've been putting out. Because, even with all the crazy crap and setbacks, I'm still pushing on to accomplish the goals that I still can in spite of it all. It is stressful, though. And putting these videos out helps me to vent and stay positive. I only hope my viewers enjoy watching as much as I do making them. Okay, guys, what do you want to see next? More of this series as new things develop, or something new entirely? Let me know in the comments. As always, if you like this video, hit like, and if you want to see more of my content, hit subscribe. Peace!